What exactly is the dark night of the soul? Oh boy, I know so much about the dark night of the soul. However, I don't know if our languages here on earth are rich enough to convey the feeling of the dark night of the soul, to convey what you go through when you are going through the dark night of the soul. So I will do my best. I think we coined the phrase from a very old book written by Saint John of the Cross. Now, I will explain how I understood the dark night of the soul. When we come to earth, we bring guides with us. Usually 2, sometimes it's 3, but usually 2. These guides, in the majority of cases, are our friends from back home. And they are friends who don't mind being next to you your whole life and kind of nudging you which way to go. One day you start waking up and you start remembering that there is more to earth than merely survival, and that you are so much more than just your body. I'm going to use the word, I don't know what word to use. I was going to use the word stupid, but not for real stupid people. I'll explain in a moment. If you're stupid enough, you keep saying, I want more. I want more. I want to find out more. So your knowledge grows, your awareness grows, and then you have reached the same awareness that your guides have, which were your friends from back home. And you keep saying, I want more. Just knowing where I come from isn't enough. I want more. And I want to express this more here on earth. So then, your guides need to go and find you, I'm going to use the human word, bigger guides, meaning more evolved, more knowledgeable, wiser. For some reason, I do not know why, but for some reason, this process takes 90 days, almost to the minute. I don't know what the importance of this is and why it is necessary. So your guides go off to find you what they called teachers. When they brought them back to me, I heard the phrase, we brought you some teachers. And they can then guide you for the rest of your experience on earth. And all this because you kept saying, I want more, and I want more. And you kept saying it for years. I kept saying it for almost 3 years. Now, these 90 days that your guides have gone, you might as well be dead. There is absolutely no communication with the universe, with other dimensions, with even your soul for some reason. It's like no one from the other side is talking to you. Everything in your life seems to collapse or does collapse. Many people, not all, many people will lose their money, lose their job, lose their family, lose everything during those 90 days. That is the time when you are forced, absolutely forced, to look in and to find more of you. because you cannot rely on anyone else or anything else. And when we say anyone else, I don't mean family and friends. I mean the universe. Because it's as if no one is there. You feel so cut off. You feel completely isolated. When I was going through this, I remember at that time I was living in San Francisco. I remember I used to walk the streets of San Francisco, dazed, and suddenly I would go into a restaurant, go to the toilet so I can start crying. You would just cry for no reason. Well, there was a reason. You felt totally empty and totally alone. And the worst part is you don't know what's going on. That's the worst part. Had I known what was going on, it would have been so much easier for me. But again, there aren't enough words to describe the feeling of emptiness and loneliness. It's a different lonely than when you're alone at home, you have no friends and nobody's calling. It's a completely different loneliness. You really feel like your soul has abandoned you somewhere. And you do find you after that. You really, really do. And you are forced, as the statement here says, and the courage to love and accept all that I find. You are forced to start liking all that you find. You know why? Simply because you feel like there's no one else around anyway. There is nothing else around. No good or bad. So you start holding on to you. It really forces you to go to the depths, the dark part inside you, and grab onto something. Many people think or say they have gone through the dark night of the soul simply because they have had a bad period in their life. But when I look at them, it doesn't show in their eyes. So, of course, I don't say, no, you haven't, because I can't be 100% certain. But you can just tell when someone has gone through it. Their eyes are totally different. They have a different depth that you can't explain almost. I always say go through the difficult parts. It's worth it. Go through the difficult times in your life. It is worth it. But I have to admit that to this point, whenever I look back at my life, this is the one part that I still cannot bring myself to say it was worth it. So far, it wasn't. Sure, I have access to more information now. Sure, I've discovered more of me with these new guides. But I still cannot make peace with these 90 days and the feelings that these 90 days brought me. Maybe one day I will, but it's not something that I can say, go through it, ask for it. I will not recommend that. It's very, very difficult. So if you are one of those people that keeps saying, I want more and I want to discover more of the universe and more of me, be aware that something like this might happen. This does not happen to every single individual that asks for more. Many years ago, I moved to the country where one of my brothers was living, and he had just started waking up and remembering. And he did everything quite fast. After a year or a year and a half, I thought, okay, his dark night is going to come soon. I won't say anything. I'll just leave him and see what happens. 2 years go by, no dark night. He was always happy. And then I asked my soul, how come David, that's my brother's name, how come David has not gone through the dark night yet? And my soul replies, David came here with extremely wise guides. He didn't come here with his friends. So there's no reason for the guides to change. Of course, instead of making me happy, this made me depressed. Because I kept asking, so why didn't I do the same? And then I got a silly answer. The answer is not silly, but for me it was just too cliche-ish. You wanted to experience this. But this answer was not good enough for me. I just got angry and I stopped talking to my higher self for a few months. Right. So, yes, I would not encourage you to say, I want more, I want more, I want more, and get me higher guides, because it is very difficult. So this is what the dark night of the soul is. But again, I think that if someone knows about it, it would be easier. The hardest bit for me was not knowing. The funny thing is, a few days after it finished, and it literally finished at 2:10 in the afternoon, which was also the time it began. A couple of days after that, I was in a bookstore and I had gotten a book and went to the coffee shop of the bookstore to read it. I have a feeling the book was called Soul Growth, written by a French-Canadian woman, but I'm not sure if those were the exact words of the title. But in there, she was describing in 2 pages about the dark night of the soul and about how she knew nothing about it. And she was describing how we feel when we go through it. And that is when I found out what I was going through. And of course I started to cry uncontrollably in the coffee shop, which was not a pretty sight because I was 40 years old. So I don't know what else to say about the dark night of the soul. I really don't, because it's one of those things where the other person says, I don't know what to say. You know, if you are going through it, there is nothing I can say to make you feel better. There really isn't. So I'm going to leave it at this.